humbled to have Steve with us today. Oh, great, fantastic. We really fought for it. You see, I told you, technology will never win us.
Yeah,
We are
thank
always the
you.
winner.
Thank you, Joy.
Yes, I have this philosophy, the computer is supposed to do what I want, and I fight with it until I get it. And thank you, Steve, not giving up. This is the second part, our listener. Thank you, Mary, for joining, and the ones who are there. We need to finish this up because we really wanted Steve to pass the information. He had just not finished, and we had to wind up because of the connection. But we are back. So, Steve, before all these technologies decide to go the other way around, go ahead and finish up. Tell us, what are you bringing to our way? It was about the event that is happening in June. Steve will be giving the workshop, and he giving us small tips what he will present on the day. So he was in the process of telling us, and please, Steve, take the stage.
Thank you, Joy. Before I was rudely interrupted by technology, I wanted to speak about. I wanted to share a few things that we'll be covering during the workshop on the 30th of June. So the title of the workshop is How to Make Your Money Work for You. And what that means is this is going to be specifically targeted at women who have these small self-help groups or investment groups, right? So what happens is traditionally you'd have a lot of such groups having the old system where they would collect money and then every month they would distribute that money to their members. So essentially what happens is every single month they would collect from all the members and then they would have a cash reserve, and at the end of that month they would distribute that cash and then go back to zero. So then they start afresh again. Every single month they start out and they repeat the cycle. So what we're basically going to talk about is how can investment groups, primarily run by women, how can they leverage on the available capital, especially in Europe? How can they leverage on their funds, the money that they actually collect every single month? How can they use that as investment capital? How can they save some of that money and not just distribute the whole chunk every single month? So what we're trying to do, especially in this workshop, is we're going to touch on a few areas on structure and systems is going to be the number one thing we'll be talking about at the workshop. So what do I mean by structures and systems? The problem why these self-help and investment groups, the reason why they're not able to access or tap into funding or capital sources that are abundantly available in Europe, the problem is there is a lack of a paper trail. There's a lack of structure and systems, bookkeeping, accounting, sort of formal organization. So structures and systems will be the number one thing we touch on. How can these investment groups actually get themselves registered officially, recognized, in the countries in which they live, in which these women reside? So that's number one. And then number two, we'll just touch on a few areas, or rather a few ways in which once the structures and systems are in place, so then after a period of time, maybe 6 or 12 months of following through on a specific savings and investment strategy, they could then use the money that they have put aside as savings, maybe 10%, or then maybe 20% they can put aside in a sort of investment fund. Then we'll touch on how they could go about to make investments as a group. And then they could make their money work for them by investing that money, whether in investing in businesses, whether they would buy property. And I think property is also one area that we're going to touch on, just briefly, because the question of collateral, the question of security comes up when we are talking about long-term investments, because these women actually have access to a lot of capital amongst themselves inside their groups. But if we touch on the issue or the topic of leveraging, which means, you have a certain amount, but you can leverage on external capital to allow you to do much bigger things and execute on much bigger projects. I'll give you an example, Joy.
Okay.
An investment group that collectively has, or rather has access to about 100,000, and trust me, I've spoken to a few investment groups that have access to 100 up to even 150,000 euros a year just among the members. So when we talk about leveraging, just to give people the an overview, if an investment group can raise about 100,000 euros, there are programs, funding programs from banks, some of them which are state sponsored programs. They can get 90% loaned to them by a bank, for example. So that means if they have 10%, which is 100,000 euros of their own private equity or capital, they can get a bank to match that with 900 euros. They can, collectively pull off a €1,000,000 investment project. So these are just a few of the things we're going to talk about to show women what is available, Joy, and you'll be amazed. There is a lot that women can do, especially being that they are already organized into groups. So if they just pumped a little bit of structure and systems, they could find themselves buying buildings in Europe. And by buildings I mean,
wow, why not?
So all of that is
I'm for it.
and it's possible.
It's amazing when you say about the Suso and merry-go-round. They're everywhere. Most of the groups that we have around here, we put money together and share, take it back of the same month. There's nothing left. It's actually something that we have seen also back in the continent, which is not very active here in Europe. The people have developed themselves, right? They have moved to one step to another one. And I like the idea that you will come specifically to talk to our women, because I know my members, we are so many of us, and we have so many of these groups in any form of way or structure, because we all try to save our money. We want to move on to the next level, but we either are scared of the regulation or we don't know what's next. And we are scared. Some of them don't even put it in the bank. Some of them, they put it under it's quite interesting, the kind of combination people do it. But you coming to tell us that you people, you have to stop putting, that it's not bad, but you need to improve yourself to the next level where people are now doing big. There are organizations that I've seen that have also gone to that level, and they're doing really, really well. So our viewers, our listeners, if you come to our event, Steve will be telling us all this information. And Steve, maybe how can you empower the women who are here in Europe? Because most of them, they think they will not be able to make it to the event because of the distance or the restrictions, and I'm sure you're also having your own programs, because they might want to reach you later on, because I'm sure, I always say there's enough for everyone, right? Because if every woman in Europe come to my event, I don't know where to put all of them. So how can you encourage them for those ones who are not coming and those ones who are coming as well?
Thank you, Joy. So what will happen is, of course, at the event, we'll touch on these things. And again, the half an hour workshop is simply not enough. There is so much information. On that day, we'll just be able to touch on a few things and sort of, shed some light and enable them to see a different perspective. But on my Facebook page, anyone who's watching this video, if you follow me on Facebook, Steve Odhiambo, I have a Facebook page where all of my videos are. What I'm doing is I do also provide coaching and consulting for individual groups. Like, I've had situations where investment groups invite me to one of their meetings, and I go there and I spend the whole day with them. I spend 8 hours, 10 to 6. I do a complete master class specific for the ladies and their investment group. So then that allows us to go in depth. We take a look at their current system, how much money they have. We take a look at their investment projects, what they've already done. And then we also look at, how can we tap into the system in Europe, access more finance, and make much larger investments. So that also exists. They can contact me as a group. I go to them if they can't make it to come to Amsterdam.
You see, there you go. You said it all. They can contact you, and that's why we're here, Awe. Awe, we're here to broadcast all these possibilities out there. There are opportunities. Unfortunately, we cannot spoon feed you. You really have to come and get them, right, Steve? Because we believe it has to start from you as an individual. Are you ready for these changes? Because if you're not ready, however much we keep preaching this information, it will not be absorbed. But I'm sure some of you out there are listening to this information. Opportunities, they are called opportunities. You're here in Europe to embrace all the opportunities. Take care of also finding out where they are. Register yourself with Steve Odhiambo if you not make it to come to the event. And he's just offered us the 30 minutes of his quality. And as you can hear, he is well informed. He knows what he's talking about. And if you're making it, if you make it in Germany, you can make it anywhere. So I think we are on the right track right here. So Steve, what are the last words you could give us for today? Yeah, because I know we are meeting you for the first time as well. We are always meeting on Facebook or on live. We need to talk about this next time. But what encouragement would you give our members, especially those ones? Probably some people we have from our, as they tell me that, okay, I don't have so much money, I cannot afford these ideas that you're giving, and how would you encourage them?
Thank you, Joy. One thing, I'd like to say, the women in Europe, I'd like to commend them and applaud them. Number one, because of their organization, because of their level of planning, because they take action. So first of all, the women out there, African women in Europe, whether you're part of our way or you're not, and if you're not, you should join our way. First of all, I want to commend you because of the amazing job that you're doing. Women are really doing a lot to empower themselves and to empower the African community in general, right? So that being said, they've already gone half the mile. Like they're already halfway to the finish line. So when it comes to the investment groups, already being part of one, it doesn't matter if you collect 100 euros or if you give 100 euros or you give 1,000 euros a month. The fact that you pay into such an investment group every single month, shows that you have a certain level of discipline, shows that you have a saving culture, shows that you have you're forward thinking, you're thinking about the future, not only your future but that of your children. So at this point, I just want to commend women because of the level of organization, the level of structure, and the way in which they are forward thinking. So my job is, and I always say this, my job is just to lift the veil from your eyes, just to show you what is possible and what exists out there, what you can achieve. That's my job, and I hope and believe that we can achieve that on the 30th of June in Amsterdam.
Yes, thank you so much, Steve. I think I've been frozen again. I don't know why. And
I
thank
can
you
see
for
that.
coming to the event. And we have that. Yes, and thank you so much. And for our listeners, let's call it a day today. It has been a long day. We have been informed. We have the first part. Visit the first part. We talked about our event. It will start on 30th of June. Register yourself. How to get us. www.africanwomenineurope.eu. And Steve, thank you for joining us.
Fantastic, Joy. I really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you all in Amsterdam. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.